Hello everyone, Wojtek here with another, not so weekly devlogs about my 3D fantasy game made with Godot. Some of you may notice that I didn't post any update or progress report for over 2 months. And I must say, it's definitely a long time, so I think that I should post at least some explanation about what's going on with this project. Let's start with few new things. At my last devlog, I said that I will focus on creating my new character. So here it is. I am mainly a software developer, so it took me a lot more time than I thought it would. But the process wasn't too painful thanks to the really nice character modeling series by the guy named Dika on YouTube. If you want to learn how to create such characters for games, I highly recommend this series. It's really beginner friendly and focused more on good practice rather than software itself. I would say it's the best video tutorial for Blender on YouTube right now. But let's go back to the topic. So I started with a sketch in Krita. I tried to draw my character from the front and side view, so it would be easier to model later. I had a little bit of experience in drawing, so this step wasn't so painful. It took me a few days to complete it. After that, I followed video series until I reached texturing step. Texturing is really hard and I'm still not satisfied with the current result. I started to do it in Blender, then I moved to an armor paint. So after that, I tried to import it to Godot, and you can see the result on the screen right now. To be honest, I wasn't fully satisfied with it, so I started to play a little bit with shaders. After a few tries, I implemented half Lambert lighting for Godot, so that my character would be more distinctive in my environment. But quickly I realized that my textures are lacking in quality. I am not an artist or a graphic designer, so I started to search for more procedural approach. At that time I learned about Substance Designer, and of course as a fan of open source projects, I realized that there is a really nice alternative named Material Maker. I was even more surprised when I realized that it's made with Godot, so it was basically perfect for my game. Yeah, that's right, side projects. That is the problem of every solo game developer. Side projects are really cool and you are rewarded by how fast you can make something work. Everything started with my desire to learn Material Maker. After playing with it for a few days, I realized that you can quickly create your own nodes with a little bit of shader code. It was really cool and I was even more into it. I started analyzing source code and later trying to fix a few things with some cool improvements. Yeah, I was totally into it. And I am not gonna lie, I will continue to contribute, but it took me weeks to realize the problem. I started with some basic tutorials on how to create textures, and right now I am looking at the screen analyzing source code of this application. And yeah, there is nothing wrong with it if I didn't neglect my own project. I even forgot what my initial intention was. And yeah, after many tries I still decided to stay with original textures from Blender. But not everything is lost. I still learned a lot about Material Maker, and I decided to use it to create some art for my second biome. So my experience with side project wasn't a total loss. After a few days I had a really nice texture set to play with. I created this simple scene with few plants, a little bit of sand and few rocks. Nothing special, but I think it will look pretty nice, and it fits the world map that I was working on simultaneously. So I moved everything to Blender, I created assets and imported them to my Godot project. There were few things that I wish I knew about Godot before I started. So let's talk about transparency in Godot. Why it's so hard to achieve a good looking vegetation? In my opinion, the reason is the combination of multiple small problems. If you ever try to place a tree with leaves or a grass in Godot, you quickly realize that they look different than in other engines. Yeah, I mean, out of the box they usually looks ugly. So what's the problem? I will speak about my experience. I hope it will change with the new release in Godot, but I hate to work with it right now. So firstly, let's talk about jagged edges issue. I was always surprised how much better my assets looked with alpha blending compared to alpha scissors. And I am not talking about textures with opacity, I'm talking about textures with binary alpha, typically used for billboards. So in Godot we have an anti-aliasing method named MSAA, and it's really cool, but I realized that it doesn't work on alpha textures. So basically everything far away from camera looks pretty bad. I decided to at least test performance of my game with alpha blending enabled for trees and brushes. So I changed my shader and of course it doesn't work. Even with alpha prepass depth sorting, everything looked terrible. Depending on camera angle, meshes just switched from one to another. And the problem was more noticeable in the background, far from camera. So I started to investigate the issue, and I think that I found it. So how does the Godot sort transparent objects? Well, I am not 100% sure, but from my experience, everything with transparency higher than 0.99 is rendered to depth buffer. It seems logical, but what actually happens if we use mip maps on our textures? Yeah, nothing good. Smaller texture in size were averaging alpha color, so it was below the threshold. And yeah, I quickly tested it with mip maps disabled, and the result was satisfying. But this solution introduced a lot of noise. I decided to cheat a little bit with shaders and multiply alpha with some pre-configured constant. You can see the result on the screen right now. It looks good, but it's really bad for performance, so I still continue to tinker with other solutions. Right now I am investigating distance field alpha testing without alpha blending. I hope I will have something to talk about in few weeks. Until now I am stuck with this method. And lastly, I want to talk about other related stuff. So let's start with a story about Godot 4.0 and my early tests. So after seeing few videos on YouTube with 4.0 release, I decided it was the time to at least test my desert sand. And boy, there is a lot of changes. Firstly, my scene didn't even load because of changes in environment between Godot 3.2 and 4.0. There were problems with my custom shaders using alpha scissors and alpha prepass. Then I couldn't move anything because editor just crashed. So right now I'm stuck with this experiment, but I don't give up. I believe that such simple scene will give me a good overview about changes concerning vegetation rendering. Speaking more about current game development progress, I designed my world map and I tried to draw it in Krita. It doesn't look good, so I need to work on it more. Also, I tried to use newer version of Xylan HateMap plugin, but there is a lot of changes and improvements, so I need to update my biome plugin first. I am especially interested in new Splat 16 shader. Currently I am working on improvements to my octahedral impostor plugin, which I use in my game, mainly for LOD. I am fixing some problems and testing some new ideas to improve quality. And that's all I wanted to talk about today. I really hope that the things I mentioned could be useful for some Godot developers. I will continue to work on it, and I will try to post another update in the near future. If you have any suggestions or questions, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.